Sandi here, and welcome back to New Roads and New Rules.
Hi, welcome back. This is Terri.
But you're my bestie for life. Yeah, you're the family I choose. Yeah, you. The end, but still the end. We can get through this together. But you're my bestie.
So last week's episode was all about building a support network.
Yeah.
It was a great episode. We had
was.
so much fun. But there is a topic when it comes to our overall support network that we need to talk about today, which is boundaries.
Something very difficult.
It's my worst topic, and you'll find out why as we go.
Yeah.
Why do boundaries matter? Boundaries, equal self-respect, mental peace, stronger connections. And setting boundaries is not selfish, it's necessary.
Something I need to remember.
Something I need to learn. So I'm hoping that we can learn that today. As a matter of fact, I need so much help here. I tend to overextend myself in so many ways, like in a lot of different ways, and I have trouble saying no. So I am hoping to learn something not only from you, Terri, but from our community and from the research that I've done.
Right.
Do you have any personal insights, Terri?
Well, yeah, I too have a hard time saying no in a lot of situations and take a lot on and end up mentally and physically exhausted. However, since my divorce, I have set a boundary, and I knew it's a non-negotiable boundary, and so I have kept it. I will not get remarried ever again. I can be in a committed relationship, but I will never get married again. I don't want to go through that if something happens. I don't want to look at things negatively, but it was just chaos. It was just not a great divorce.
So it's a hard boundary for you.
It's a hard boundary for me, which in the end, it's been easy for me to keep because I'm like, no, I'm not doing that ever again. I'm not doing that again. And I guess it's just because I was pushed kind of against a wall, not physically, but it was a bad divorce, and I know I never want to go through that again.
Right.
So that is my boundary. And in moving forward in my life and starting to date, I have dated some men, and great guys, good guys, nothing against them. But now trying to get them to understand that boundary had nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. It is a boundary for me because I know that I never wanted to go through that again. And it was non-negotiable. Now, setting that boundary, let's just say those relationships didn't last because they took it more personally. We've got this great relationship. Why don't you want to get married? I just don't want to. It has nothing to do with you personally or our relationship. I just don't want to get remarried. So it didn't last for them.
Right.
And it that's just what happened. And it taught me to stick to that boundary and stick to those boundaries I set, and then just to be patient. Patience is another thing that I have a hard time with sometimes, to be patient. I'm always the go, 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 go. And this has taught me to be patient. Luckily, I am dating somebody right now who turns out has the same boundary that I do. And I had to be patient enough to find that person. Mm-hmm. And it has worked out well. It is working out well. So, I don't know if it takes something like that. Do I do this all the time? No. I am like you. It's hard for me to say no. But when it comes to hard things like that,
right,
it was an easy choice to make and an easy boundary to make.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, it's really good to have one and to stick to it. It is about how other people react to your boundaries, right? And so I know that we're going to be talking about the differences in our relationships. There are really healthy relationships we all have and really toxic relationships.
Yes. So let's talk about the differences. Let's just dive right in, right?
Right.
So there are differences between support that lifts you up and relationships that quietly or sometimes loudly drain you. And I am not talking about just romantic relationships. friend relationships do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter. It's just a relationship you have with another human being, right? So let's look at the positive ones first, right? The healthy relationship. What does a healthy relationship sound like? Well, in a healthy relationship, you can speak openly without walking on eggshells.
Yes,
Our
100%.
relationship, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, I've never felt like I had to walk on eggshells with you. I can talk to you about anything. You could talk to me about anything. And we don't have to, you know, walk on eggshells or worry about what we just said might hurt the other person. That's a healthy relationship. They celebrate your wins and hold space for you in your struggles. Like, they're there for you.
See, I love friends that celebrate when something really great happens, to
Or
me
even
or
if it's
to each
not
other.
a real great thing,
Right,
like
but-
just a small celebration, and they celebrate you.
Yeah, but there could be jealousy. People like
True.
I know I'm already talking about the bad stuff, but like I love the celebrations.
Yes.
I think we all need to celebrate each other more, not just friends, but family and everything. I
Right.
think we need to celebrate every win.
Yes,
every
I
win.
agree. They also respect your boundaries and encourage your growth. That is a big deal for me. I think in any relationship, honesty and respect are the top two qualities in any good relationship.
Agreed.
And the encouragement, you know, the people, my close inner circle, I would have to say that these three things, check, check, check. You know, and I think that is important when you're making, like we were talking about, making new friendships, making new relationships last week. These three things are like check. These are on your checklist. You want these three things in any relationship that you're bringing into your close circle. And I think there is a difference between your close circle people and your larger circle of people, right? And but your close circle of people that you want to turn to or want to have, you know, involved in your most personal things, these three things are your top priorities. Because on the opposite side of that, you've got toxic relationships. We've all had them. You know, we may still have them going on. And again,
Sometimes they're not easy to spot.
sometimes they are not easy to spot. Like, it just pops out of nowhere, right? What do those toxic relationships look like? Well, you feel unheard or manipulated. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, I can say that I've been in a relationship like that, friend and romantic relationship. They dismiss your emotions or make you feel guilty for taking care of yourself. That is one of the reasons that ended my marriage. Like, that is one of the biggest ones, right? Your growth feels stifled or even punished because of their jealousy, as you brought up earlier, right? That is a toxic trait that, you know, is no good, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, in any relationship, right? You want people to be proud of your growth, excited for your growth.
Right.
And I think that is super important. And, you know, both romantic, personal, family, you know, friendships, all of that I would expect from my close circle.
And I have to say, just in regards here, like, especially the last one, you know, there have been times where people in my life who I consider close in my life, yes, I've shared a positive thing with them, a positive, you know, in my new job, hey, I got this great sale, you know, whatever. And the response came back as a negative thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it was, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, all right, well, why would I want to share that? But I have to say, keeping that boundary, but it's not something that happens all of the time. So to me, that triggers, hey, as a friend, I need to check in.
Right.
Like, so we have to do a little bit of grace, I feel like.
I agree.
Because if it's happening over and over and over again, then that's a toxic relationship.
Right.
But if it is something that is not happening over and over and over again, and it just kind of pops up, give a little grace, and maybe that's where you check in with, hey, what's going on?
Yeah,
like,
I agree. We talk about, I know you and I outside of this podcast had talked about the book we read, the Let Them Theory, which was so powerful and so life-changing. But it is interesting because, you know, it is how you respond to something like that. And for you to say, you know what, you don't know what's going on with that person at that moment.
Right.
And so why that came across negative, there could be a good reason. Right. And so it is letting them have their minute to be a little not respond as you wish. Right. But it is also let me figure out what's going on with my friend.
Exactly. You know, and in that scenario that I gave, like, yes, we not even weeks, like days later, they replied and they're like, hey, that was wrong. I'm sorry, you know? And it's true. Like, so with that, you know, I was very adamant on the healthy relationships. They should have, you know, this is your checklist. I feel that the toxic ones, you should have a checklist, you know, but with that last one, like, you have to give a little grace. Like, it depends on the person.
Well,
right?
It could apply to every single one of those bullet points, though.
It could.
Right? So the hardest part for me is what constitutes this is just this one time versus this is happening all the time. Like, at what point do I realize I'm in, you know, this is a toxic relationship?
Well, see, as I've learned, if it happens the first time, then I'm going back and I'm checking on that friend. Something else good happens and it comes back and it's negative. My flags are going up already.
Right.
Like, it's already, I'm like, and at this point, in me being me, I'm like, what the fuck? What is going on? You know, like, why? This is the second time this has happened. Like, you have to be able to be okay enough to, like, address the situation at that point.
Right.
And if you address the situation and figure it out, it happens a third time, it's toxic. I think it's toxic.
Yeah.
You know, like in baseball, 3 strikes, you're out.
Yeah.
And I agree. And I
do feel like it would be different for each individual person.
It is different for each individual person.
I would love to hear from our listeners to find out, like, you know, how have you dealt with toxic people, or how long did it take for you to recognize?
Right.
I know I'm jumping ahead.
No, that's fine. We're going there. Yeah, no, we want to know, does this relationship bring out the best in me or leave me feeling exhausted and undervalued? So that, you know, I want listeners to reflect on that and think about their relationships in their lives and, like, apply that question and just kind of, like, mentally start going through it, you know, especially if you are feeling drained and with the relationship. And we all have those relationships, like, where you see their name pop up on the phone and you're like, oh, I can't deal with that right now. Like, so reevaluate that, like, and kind of go through it.
Right, go with your own emotions. I love that about what you're saying, because if you're feeling that way, there's a reason for it.
There's a reason for it. You follow your gut.
Absolutely. So, what healthy boundaries look like, you know, in my research. I've learned that boundaries, they aren't walls per se, but they're like bridges with gates. Right? So it's healthy boundaries, not a stubborn stance on something. Right. Which is really interesting. So types of boundaries that I've learned about are emotional, guarding your peace. You know, things that make you feel bad. Yeah. You know, guard that. You want to always stay in a healthy, peaceful, positive mindset. Right.
For yourself.
Time boundaries, saying no to overcommitment. So that's the one.
That's the one for me too.
Because I want to do everything. And it's not everything for everybody. I'm not saying I'm going out of my way for other people. I'm saying I overcommit. Right. Because I want to do stuff. Right. Me too. And I want to, and then I have a full-time job, but then I want this side gig and this side gig. And then, let's start a podcast. So,
and here we are.
So I can think of 10 more side gigs that I'd love to do. Right. Just because, why? Not necessarily for the money, but for the stimulation that comes with it.
I'm the same way. Like, you know, that sounds great. Let's do it. And then I'm like, what did I just agree to?
Right. Like, I have a passion for, home fragrance. Let me learn to make my own candles. Right. And then that spirals into a whole thing. You know what I mean? Right. So it's just, anyway, That is a boundary I need to learn about. Physical, so respecting space, touch, and comfort. Now, physical boundaries are super important.
Yes.
Not just for women, but for everyone.
Yes.
I think it depends on where you're at. Like, are you with family? I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's family or work, right?
Right.
We hear all about sexual harassment and the right way to approach somebody and not touch somebody and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
In a professional setting, because these businesses are made to train people on that. But it can apply in personal settings.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even with my kids, like growing up, like when I grew up, it was just like, oh, go give your aunt and uncle a hug and a kiss.
Right.
Go give them, like we were forced to. And I didn't like to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Like I just, no, I mean, yeah. And so with my kids, I didn't really want to force that on them. Like,
I did.
And I mean, I didn't want to do it because I knew how it felt,
Yes.
and that's how I do a lot of things. I'm
Yes.
like, even when I manage, I've always been in management, am I going to force them to do something that I don't feel comfortable
Right.
doing? No. So, I would say, hey, say goodbye. Like,
Right.
you
Say
wave,
goodbye.
say goodbye.
Right.
I don't care if it's a wave, just say goodbye.
Right.
Acknowledge them. But no, physical is a different thing.
Yeah.
Even in new relationships, like, I would prefer them, is it okay if I do this? Is it,
Right.
and I say that, like,
Right.
it's all right. I don't want to encroach somebody and make somebody feel
Right.
uncomfortable. And and there are people that I get are very overly I don't know, excited about all of that. I mean, I feel encroached, and
Right.
and it's hard for me sometimes to say, hey, I just gotta back off, like,
Yeah.
personal space here.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm laughing because I have a sister that doesn't necessarily want to be touched, and my instinct is to go and lick her face. You know what I mean? So I just,
Well, Sandy, I think you need a little more help than that, licking people's faces.
I told you boundaries are not my thing. No, so
All right,
I have to work on this.
no licking people.
Okay, all right. I will try not to.
Unless they ask you to. I mean, that's a whole other story that we will get into in another episode. If they ask you to lick them, it's okay.
And yet, if they did, I would run away. So there it goes.
I guess it would depend on the person.
For you.
All right, for me, it depends on the person.
Oh my God, this boundary conversation has gotten way out of control. No.
But we gotta lighten it up.
Okay.
All right, what's next?
One other type of boundary is communication. So again, probably not my favorite. Clearly, knowing what's respectful and what's not respectful.
Well, obviously, from our last conversation, I don't know what's not respectful.
So Terri gave me this section for a reason.
I did. I'm going to force you to learn about boundaries.
Well, also you had me do some research. So
Well, I didn't have you do research,
No, because-
but you are the research queen.
well, because I needed to. I needed to research this topic because
Yeah.
clearly I have work to do. But 78% of people made healthier boundaries a goal in 2023, according to the honorsociety.org.
Okay.
So probably for 2026, I'll be part, maybe that number will rise and I'll be part of it.
I wonder how those 78% of people, how their lives changed from making those.
I know, that's why maybe they'll be listening and they can tell us.
I hope so.
Because I need some positive affirmations around it.
Yes.
So, and then YouGov did a study that said 57% of people say boundaries are crucial in romantic relationships.
I completely agree with that. I mean, again, and that's why, relationships didn't last with me, because I set a boundary. you know? But
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
And then, Indeed did something that said boundaries are boundaries at work reduce burnout and improve job satisfaction, which I completely agree about boundaries at work.
No, I agree as well, because as you know, I just started a new job, and my boundaries at the beginning, I was like, okay, I'll do whatever, I'll help out, whatever. But I'm learning to set those boundaries because you get burnt out. Well, and I have my own company, right? Let me just go back to that. I mean, I have my own company, and I was getting so burnt out because boundaries, what are boundaries?
Right.
And I was just trying to make sure all of the clients were taken care of, and I could do it, I could handle it. I was totally burnt out, and to the point where I knew it was either it was going to go bad, and I, as a professional, I don't want to do bad services,
right,
or say something unprofessional,
right,
or I have to back out and I have to take a step back, and which is what I did, and just for.
I have been there. I have taken on so much, during times of we downsizing or whatever. I'm like, sure, I'll take on that department and that department and that department. And then at one point I had everybody reporting to me. It was a small company, but everybody was reporting to me, and I remember thinking, oh yeah, I could do this, I got this. Mm-hmm. But then I quickly realized that I was doing a disservice to every single person because I wasn't giving any of my direct reports the attention that they needed, or the counseling or the coaching that they needed to be better at their job.
Right.
We were just putting out fires day to day. Oh, you need this? Okay, here's this. And, giving them, I wasn't coaching. I was just giving them the answer.
Right.
Because
which they're not learning then.
There's no time in a day to take on that much.
No.
So it really could have not only bad effects on you in terms of burnout and then having to actually leave.
Right.
But it could also have terrible effects on the business.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Some tips that I found that I want to work on for myself. So, tips to set boundaries, okay? Reflect. Okay. Reflect on what drains you and what makes you uncomfortable.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Speak clearly. I feel blank when blank. Now, that's if somebody hurts my feelings, I need to be a little bit more vocal about that.
Right. In a calm manner.
In a calm and respectful manner.
Yes.
Stay consistent. Boundaries lose power when we waver. Right.
Which is why,
Yeah.
That's why we get burnt out.
Right. And then get help if needed with coaches, therapists, and support circles.
Which is why we're here.
I have to tell you, I go to a therapist every week. Mm-hmm. I've been doing it for years. I don't think anything's fundamentally wrong with me, why I need therapy and somebody else doesn't. No, I go because it is so nice to have, that's just another part of my support system. It's nice to have somebody that doesn't have any invested interest in anything that I'm saying.
Right, just a good sounding board.
A good sounding board, but she will tell me like it is. We've built that relationship over the years, and I believe in it so much. Now, I know it's not for everyone, and I know that, it doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
But she has helped me with some boundary
that's
issues.
Good.
Yeah.
Just really quick, and setting your, going through the tips to set boundaries. This is something that I don't do that maybe I should do more often, but journaling. Go through this, and just reflect on it and write down. I do, when I'm trying to learn something, it's helpful for me to start rewriting it and writing it out to get it into ingrain it into my mind. And I don't do this with myself on setting boundaries, which is probably why I have issues setting boundaries.
Right.
Because I'm not in getting it into my head, setting boundaries. So just another little tip, maybe, we should all start journaling. And if anybody doesn't has a great, way to prompt or what you do when you do it, I would love to hear that, because I think idea. I need to do that more often.
Definitely a great idea. I would love to hear if any of the listeners had success with journaling too.
Yes, that would be great. Because we really need to set boundaries with our friends, families, and partners. And, setting boundaries with friends. Recognizing when you are always the giver, right?
Oh, that goes back to the story you told earlier, even. Right? You're giving, and then when you really needed that person,
they're not there, right? And then navigating drama without guilt. That is something that I have to work on, because I instantly feel guilty if I'm setting a boundary and that boundary affects somebody in a negative way. I'm not setting it to affect them in a negative way, but whatever that situation is, and if I feel like I need to put up a boundary, my thing is always, I never want to hurt somebody. Right?
Me either.
So, which is why sometimes it's hard for me to set a boundary, because I know that this boundary is going to affect them, and, and maybe not in the best way, because it's stopping them from doing something that's making me feel uncomfortable, but obviously they're comfortable in doing that. And it might not be a bad thing. Like, take, for instance, the, personal space boundary. Like, okay, we need to stop this, I don't like this, or whatever the case may be. But I instantly feel guilty if I'm setting a boundary and then I see that it's, they are upset about it or whatever, and I feel guilty. And so that is just something that I have to work on, with friends.
I think it's hard anyway.
It's
right?
hard, yes.
But if your friend understands why you're setting the boundary...
Right, which is, I think I need to explain it maybe a little more or whatever.
Right.
But yes, but setting boundaries with friends helps to keep that friendship healthy.
Agreed.
And whatnot, right? So I think it's good. I think it's sometimes even harder setting boundaries with family. Because
for sure.
Family, they think they can say or do whatever because you're family. Like, you're stuck with them, right? And, like, they're forever, right there. So respecting elders doesn't mean sacrificing your well-being, right? I know when my mom was alive... like, setting boundaries with, like, so my son was a baby, an infant, and I remember walking in, and he was always, his temperature always ran hot. He was always a hot baby. And I remember walking into my sister's house, and I have, like, a onesie on him with a blanket. It's cold outside, but I put him in all the stuffing and, the big thick stuff. He's screaming because he's hot. So I come in, and we were coming from the car into the house, and my mom, oh my gosh, it's winter. Why are you doing this? Blah, 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 and the whole thing. And it just driving me crazy.
Right.
Trying to set that boundary with your elders, right? It's hard. It's
right.
hard.
It is.
Because you don't want to be disrespectful, but you have to, because,
For sure. I think family is tricky because I think your family is the most comfortable with you.
Right.
And they're going to tell you like it is, which is, there's something oddly like comforting in that as well.
Right.
Because they're not mincing words.
Right. They're not. They're not.
But it's tricky, I think.
It does get tricky.
Because they are all rooting for you.
Yes. Yes. So then,
I mean, usually for my family they are.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
for
I
my
don't
family
know.
they were too.
Right.
My family it is
right.
too.
I'm not trying to speak for others here.
No,
because I'm sure everybody has a different.
Right, and some people don't have that family support, and that's a whole other thing. We're talking like just your healthy family support, and knowing it's okay to tell our parents as an adult, hey, this has, let me figure this out. Let me figure this out, and let me do this, right?
I think you're right, and I think there's, no matter how healthy it is, you still have to set boundaries.
You still have to set boundaries.
For sure.
And also then handling those nosy and overbearing relatives gracefully. As you know, as I know, going through a divorce.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you have said in the past, it's more their opinion than advice that they give, and trying to handle that. And it's hard because you've got all this coming at you and you want to handle it your situation, and they're doing it out of love.
Yes, they're your family. They're love
your family, but trying to handle that in a moment where you need to handle things in life, it does get to be noisy, and whatnot. So it's hard. So, but it's important that you set those boundaries. And I know at one point during my divorce, I had to say, hey guys, I hear you. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
But in order for me to get through this with a peace of mind and getting out of this divorce with the things that I need to get out of this divorce, I can't do that. I can't do that.
I've said exactly those things.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you, and I thank you for that. Right? But this is what I'm going to do. I want to hear, because, listen, somebody may say something I needed to hear.
Right.
And that I need to know. and that I wasn't thinking of.
Right.
And so I listen. I do. And it's not just family, but family, friends, whatever.
Right, whoever
And then
it is.
I will take that information and I will do what's best for me and my husband
Yes.
in that situation. You know, I
Right.
mean, I know everybody's like, why are you talking about your husband? This is a divorce. Well, because we're going through it together.
Right.
I'm going through it. He's going through it, and we're doing it amicably.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And, you know, you have to put up those boundaries with your support group, because your support groups wants to be there to support you.
yeah.
But you still have to have boundaries with them.
No, for
because it does get to be overwhelming.
I agree.
And
I agree.
I was overwhelmed, and I know you have been going through that as well too. So let's talk about setting boundaries with potential partners.
Okay, you
Your
can
favorite
go ahead. You can
subject.
go ahead and do that. Potential what?
Partners. So yeah, discussing. I think it is important. Starting off that new relationship and setting expectations early. Again, I did.
If that's your boundary, you're not getting married. That's one of the first things you talk
The
about.
first things I talked about,
Right.
I'm not getting married. And it's actually grown to, I'm not getting married, I'm not going to live with anybody. My boundaries are growing. The more I date, the more they grow, right? So I'm not getting married, and I'm not going to live with somebody. I think that it's healthy to have the separate spaces, because let's face it, we'll get on each other's nerves. Like, it's human
Right.
nature, right?
Right.
It could be, you know, an off day, and like, I just don't want to deal with this right now. And it's hard if you're in the same under one roof not to be walking on eggshells. To go
Right.
back to our first boundary stuff, I don't
Right.
want to be in a situation where I'm walking on eggshells, which I found that in the last relationships,
Right.
right? That did not last, because my boundaries weren't being respected.
Right.
So, discussing those expectations early. Red flags equals boundary pushers, right? And that is something that, you know, again, is hard for me. I see the red flag, but I want to see the good best in people, right?
So do I.
And so, again, not ignoring those red flags. If they're going to push your boundaries, then that's not the person that you should be with.
Right.
The person you should be with is going to respect those boundaries,
Right.
and support you in that. And you the same with them. Like, this is not all about me. I don't like things to being all about me. You know, I want to be just as respectful of
Right,
their
like,
boundaries.
what are their boundaries?
What are their
Yeah.
boundaries? And I want to be just as respectful of that. But be mindful of the red flags, because if they're going to push, then why stay in it? Saying no without apologizing. Now,
I'm not good at that.
I'm not good at that either, and not just with partners, but with anybody. Like,
Right.
you know, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Well, why am I saying I'm sorry? Like, you know, I want to be respectful, but
But if it's genuine,
Right.
like if you really wanted to go to whatever you're being invited to and you absolutely cannot,
right.
I would say I'm sorry.
Right, right,
But I
right.
mean, if it's genuine, but don't feel like you always have to apologize, right?
But like, let's go back to my hard boundary in the last couple of relationships.
Ugh.
I didn't want to get married, and they were not understanding that,
Because they made it about them and
made
not
it
you.
about them. But here I am saying I'm sorry.
Right.
You know, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. Like, I don't want to get married.
I
don't
told
want-
you
I
this at the
told
beginning.
you. I told you. And now moving forward, I don't want to live together. You know, let's just vacation together and then
Yeah.
go back home to our separate places, you know? But why? I'm learning not to apologize for my boundaries.
Right.
Like, I'm learning that.
I love that. I love that for you.
You know, well, you know, it also helps when you have somebody that you're dating or whatever, to be understanding of that and doing
Right.
the same thing. And it's, again, patient, and they'll come. They'll come. So let's, you know, one quote that I found that I thought was good was, the people who get upset when you set boundaries are often the ones who benefited from you having no boundaries.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
How true is that?
For sure.
Those are the people that get upset with you because they're now not getting what they want.
Yeah, that's so powerful,
It
actually.
is powerful.
And it's eye-opening.
Right.
So.
And honestly, you know, even when I was breaking up, I'm the one who initiated it. And I said, think that because of what I need in my life, I'm not the person for you. And there is somebody out there that is going to be the person for you. And I meant it, you know, and I meant it in a good way. Like, I wasn't breaking up to be mean or anything like that. But obviously, you know, my boundaries were not being respected. So I'm not the one. And you have to find the person that's not going to do that, you know, and that fits within your boundaries, you know, and I'm not that. So
Right. Well, we had a lot of good discussion about boundaries,
Yes.
and so I would love to keep that discussion going. But for now, let's transition to our segment, Your Turn.
Your turn.
Your turn. So last week we asked the question: Who is the one person who has supported you through a major life change, and how did they impact you? Well, we got a couple of responses, and so I wanted to share one that I found was really... So we got a message from Molly, who said, when I decided to leave a 20-year career to start my own business, my sister was the one who stood by me through every moment of doubt. She reminded me of my strengths on the days I couldn't see them in myself. Her constant belief in me gave me the courage to take the leap. And now I'm living a life that finally feels like mine. Sometimes just one voice cheering you on is all it takes to keep going.
Yeah, so I want to applaud Molly and her sister, and this is completely Molly's experience is completely my experience with my sister.
I love that.
And I can resonate with Molly so much so. You know, jumping in on that is, you know, I've made some major life changes in my life, and it has always been my sister cheering me on, and hopefully I do that enough for her as well too. But she's always been my best friend, and we've always cheered each other on. Again, going back to my mom, which I'll refer back to my mom, you know, we would start fighting, as sisters do.
Right,
you know?
right.
And Mom would finally tell us both to shut up and say, hey, you know, when I'm gone, you two are the only ones you have. And it is true, because my family dynamic, it was my mom and us two girls, because my dad passed at an early age. And my mom was always like, you guys will always have your backs. Mm-hmm. You guys always have each other's backs. No matter what, nobody comes in between that. You guys always have each other's backs. And we have. So I am glad to see that, you know, Molly and her sister, that warms my heart, because it reminds me of me.
I love that so much. And by the way, I love your relationship with your sister as well. I mean, I have 3 sisters. So,
right.
You know, I understand the benefits of having sisters.
Right.
But I do love the two of you. I mean, since I've known you, the two of you have just always been so supportive of each other.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and again, back to my mom always made sure, you know, that was going to happen. But I'm so happy to hear that Molly and her sister have that relationship as well, because it's a good one to have.
Yes.
We also heard from Cynthia, and Cynthia says, when I went through a major health scare last year, my partner never left my side. He went to every appointment, asked the questions I was too scared to ask, and reminded me daily that I was stronger than I felt. His steady presence gave me the courage to fight and the space to heal. I honestly don't think I could have made it through without his love and belief in me.
I love that.
I love that as well.
It's also gave me chills, because, you know, when you go through something so serious,
right.
Health stuff, and we're going to touch on some health stuff later in our podcasts,
right.
I know, but it's just really... It's really meaningful to have a partner that's going to be so supportive and be there with you through thick and thin.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Through sickness and in health. That's a thing.
Right. It is a thing, you know. And and again, it's like when you're going through divorce, you know, you're like, well, crap, now I don't have that, you know.
Right.
And I think that was the scariest part of me ending the marriage.
Yes.
You know, like, you don't have that. And I really, truly hope that I will have that someday. You know, again, not being married, but being in a relationship that, you know, we can be there for each other.
Yeah.
When, you know, as we get older, that, because our kids, you know, grow up and they have their families, and I hope to God my kids are there, like, you know, and they will be, but not every day, you know, and who knows if they're going to live by me, like, because they're going to grow and spread their wings. So I really, truly hope to.
You
be
have
able to.
me.
We do have each other.
I mean, I'm just going to call you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I will call you as well. No leaving the state.
Oh, we'll see. So the question of the week. We have a new question.
What's our new question?
Our new question for this week, and we encourage everybody. We've been loving the stories coming in, so please feel free to share. What's one boundary you've set that changed your life for the better?
Yeah.
I need to know.
Yeah, well, we all heard mine.
I need to start. I'm going to borrow some of them. I think I'm going to borrow yours, Terry.
Yes,
as well.
definitely.
And I'm going to encourage everyone to try setting one new boundary this week. I'm going to try to set one new boundary this week. And then share your wins with us on social media.
Absolutely. So let's jump into our rule of the week. Every week we got a new rule, and I love this rule that we've come up with this week. This week's rule, Sandy.
Yes.
No is a complete sentence.
Oh, I kind of love that.
No is a complete
I
sentence.
love it.
I do too.
Great rule of the week.
I think it's a great rule, one that we both have to work on.
Yeah.
I also have a challenge. Think of one area in your life that needs a stronger boundary and take action this week.
Okay.
I think mine is business. Like, in my work life, I need to set stronger boundaries and work on that. Definitely.
So I will share that mine is going to be time boundaries. I think I need to work on schedules because I do feel like I do drive myself kind of to the brink in terms of time.
Me too.
And then it doesn't leave much room for self-care.
Right.
So I feel like I'm going to work on that.
Very good.
So final thoughts. Boundaries are love for yourself and for others. So if the people around you know your boundaries, they're going to be better friends, better partners, better family.
Right.
So boundaries are love.
Follow, subscribe, share your boundary breakthroughs with us. We have our Facebook and Instagram page.
Right.
You can email us at info@newroadsnewrules. Remember, every road leads somewhere new.
And the best part, we get to make the rules.
See you next time on New Roads, New Rules.
But you're my bestie for life.